Good afternoon, everyone. I know it's a tough time to do this panel discussion. It's been delayed by about 45 minutes, but we'll try and keep it short and as engaging as possible to ensure that the conversation is more lively and we could have some good insights that come out of this panel discussion. So I'll just briefly introduce the panel. We have Vikash, who's from MoEVing, a very known agency in the last mile mobility space. We have Akash from Zypp, again in the last mile mobility space, largely using two-wheelers. We have Uday, who's one of the pioneers in ensuring three-wheeler electrification happens in the country at a rapid pace. And I have on my left Ashim, who's a wealth of knowledge coming from an OEM experience and has been in various research and consulting agencies. And I'm from CRISIL. I lead the transport logistics mobility wing at CRISIL. So good afternoon, everyone, once again. Let's start with you, Uday. EVs was first introduced in India in 2013 when we had this National Electric Mobility Mission Plan. And post that, we've traversed a long journey, right from, FAME 1, FAME 2, phased manufacturing plan. And now, we are seeing slow and gradual acceptance of EVs in several areas, especially in the three-wheeler and two-wheeler space. We are actually seeing a lot more sense as the total cost of ownership is now much more favorable as compared to what it was earlier. Battery prices have also come down and products have also improved over a period of time. Better range, better capability in terms of products, as compared to earlier. How have you traversed the entire journey? If you could just brief us about it. What are the kind of products that you have? Because you are a uniquely placed player. You have a product with a fixed battery, swappable battery. You're putting up a retrofitting plan. So you're there in the entire ecosystem. So if you could just describe your journey in a couple of words.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much to Blue Circle and obviously Log9 for sponsoring and many other sponsors here. So that's great to put up such a great event. It's really exciting to be out here now. I hate Zoom calls, man. I just feel that that's so unnatural for me. All you young men and women must love it, but an old guy like me, I just love a face-to-face interaction. It's great to see such people here. Obviously, the journey, people are talking about, acceptability. I don't know if you guys are watching. 51% of three-wheelers are already electric in this country. I mean, that's a staggering amount. If you look at two-wheelers, that's also growing. So I know, everybody's talking about, the future is electric. I say the present is electric and it's continually moving. I think, at OSM, and, I don't use these, platforms. I don't want to really talk about OSM. I want to talk about the market. I want to talk about the ecosystem. What has improved, in this environment over the last 4 or 5 years? I mean, I'll give you an example. Log9 is a perfect example, right? These guys are building batteries that is changing the face of battery technology in this country. OSM, we are just building products which will help. I'm a green man. I'm a green man in a suit. What's driving me is that, 31 of the most polluted cities in this world are in our country. So how do we make a difference? How do we make enough vehicles, ecosystem? It just won't be just an OEM. It will be the batteries. It'll be the charging. It'll be building the whole ecosystem. At OSM, we've built, cargo passengers, cargo vehicles. We're building passenger vehicles. We're building two-wheelers in cargo. We're coming up with four-wheeler trucks. I think the key part is logistics in this country is taking 30% of GDP. It's a huge amount. There is so much inefficiency, and I think, electric vehicles can really, really make that change with oil prices where they are. And I think if you look at, the way we are going and the way the technology is moving, and what's most important is, I don't know, yesterday we launched a product with Log9, and I'm not here just to promote Log9. There's a whole lot of other players here, but I do believe that Log9 is doing some very, very significant work in the battery space. We came up with a product which Dr. Akshay and his team have done, which does between 75 and 95 kilometers on a single charge, in 45-minute charge. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, if I can give you vehicles with Log9 that we can make, 45-minute fast charging for 75 to maybe 95 kilometers, this vehicle can run 24 hours. That leads to income for the logistic player. 125 करोड़ भाइयों बहनों में जो गाड़ियां चला रहे हैं, उनकी इनकम बढ़ रही है. That's extremely important. That matters to us. And technology, whether you want range with fixed or you want fast charging or you want swap, we will build products for that. The journey is today, I believe, that in the next 5 years, and I'm going to be bold about it, I think the next 5 years, 85 to 90% of three-wheelers and a very, very 80% of two-wheelers and maybe 30 to 40% of vehicles will be, four-wheelers will be electric. And I think the IC game, and some of you boys and girls might hate me for it, the IC game is over. Guys, please don't invest in IC engines, because I'll tell you what, the resale value of these clunkers, I'm telling you, you're going to have to export them to another country. I'm hoping with me and Dr. Akshay and a lot of us environmentalists, we're going to make sure we build you products that the IC engines are non-existent. You petrol heads might want to buy one or two, but let me tell you, you ain't going to be able to sell them because they're just useless and they are just polluting. So sorry, I'm just going to say this, that it is extremely important that all of you here understand that electric, whether it's green energy or blue energy, in hydrogen or whatever technology, there are battery technologies in terms of zinc air, aluminum air. I know Dr. Akshay is working on it, and many other players are working on battery technology. We will bring vehicles that will bring efficiency, it will bring range, it will bring more income. And the only way, another last part I want to say is rural India. This is where electrification needs to come. And OSM is going to continually build products for rural India. It's great to hear about Tesla, but how many of us, at least not me, can afford 60 lakh cars, right? This is a country where volume needs to come in, and we need to bring technology, we need to bring batteries, we need to bring charging infrastructure, and OSM is part of that. And that's sort of where I believe OSM, and with all the partnership, we're going to build on. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that, very bold opening and putting across your thoughts. So, moving on to Akash. Akash, you are one of the very few players, who's in a way been an early entrant in this space, especially on the e-mobility side, specifically with respect to two-wheelers and doing last mile distribution. What I also understand is you've scaled up significantly over a period of last couple of years. So e-com has been one strong, kind of driver for, a business model like yours. So how have you kind of scaled up over a period of time? What are the challenges that you've seen? Because it sounds very good that, you've come from 1,000 to 6,000. It feels good to see so many Zypp vehicles on road doing last mile distribution. But I'm sure you've had your share of challenges, issues that you faced over a period of time. So if you could, kind of walk us through what have you done to overcome those issues, really.
Okay, thanks for the question, and hello everyone. Good to meet the panelists. So when we started this, venture about 4.5 years back, one thing was very clear, that climate change is imminent, and I say that quite loud, that we are the first generation who's seen climate change. Right? You can see the temperatures in London these days. It's hitting 40, 45, and they're like they don't have ACs in their houses. Right, and US president is talking about the same, that this is an emergency, right? And I think we are the first generation which is seeing this climate change, and the people who are on the planet are ideally the last generation who can do something about it, right? So that's the reason why we thought that someone has to work towards this pollution problem, and the only focus was, I knew that when we were building this venture, there were no electric vehicles. The battery chemistries, nobody knew. I think we were working with lead acid to begin with.
Yeah.
Charging infrastructure, it was an uphill task. And everything else around the business model was not defined. So we started at a point to not just to prove ourselves, but to prove this vision that yes, zero emissions matter, right? And someone has to work towards it. Now this journey has been interesting because getting the first vehicle on ground and then getting that user behavior, right? It was a wow factor. And because this question is, you're asking about the journey, so it takes me back to the first vehicle when I rode it, and it didn't have any noise on the ground, and it could actually, go between the roads. And I have traveled, I think in Zypp, I would have traveled the maximum number of scooters, right? Even the first vehicle, any new vehicle that we test, I would love to test it, right? To approve it and to kind of give that feedback. So And when people, when a red light, I would stop and a lot of people would just, come around me and ask that, oh, this is electric. It doesn't sound. How much is cost? How much is the mileage? Those are questions that we would ask. But I think those questions are all gone now. People know that EVs are here and EVs are disrupting. It makes a lot of sense. Now, why we picked e-commerce or last mile delivery as an opportunity? It's very clear because that's where the most of the number of kilometers are being traveled every day. The guy is driving 100, 120 kilometers every day. He's trying to do 20 shipments, 15 shipments, 25 shipments versus a personal mobility guy who would just go to office, come back, right? So mostly that commute is about 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers. So there's no range, there's lesser pollution, which those guys are creating versus the guy who's on logistics. So we said that let's attack that problem first. Also, with the rising fuel prices at $100, this guy is not able to, save more. We did a math and we talked to a lot of these delivery executives. They make 20,000 when they deliver goods for a Zomato or a Swiggy or, an Amazon. They save just 9,000. 9,000 is the fuel cost, 1,000 is their maintenance cost, 1,000 is their EMI or 1,200, whatever, right? When we switched them to a Zypp, right, we said that, and plus 95% of these guys, they don't have an opportunity to get financing because they never had a bank account. They're cyclical. They work for 8 months, then they go back to their hometowns. So typically the life of a gig executive is 8 to 10 months. So this guy doesn't get a bank finance. He wants to earn, right? Now, how will he adopt a bike? How would he learn the entire way? How will he charge this electric bike? He doesn't know this animal. If something breaks, there's not even an infrastructure for maintenance, right? So we said that let's do it brick by brick. We'll get the best bike, we'll give him a mileage of 120 kilometers, and we worked with our partners, the OEM partners, Hero, and many others. Then we said that let's put charging stations. Let's ensure that this guy, wherever he is, whether he's at a hub of an Amazon or Big Basket, he should get charging. We did that. Then we said that, oh, he just doesn't want to do 100, he want to do 200. Let's give him swapping, right? Then we said that he doesn't know how to charge this vehicle. He doesn't understand how to race it because it's very different. We said, let's put training into it. Let's train him. Let's put an app to tell him that how he can run, where he can charge, how he can maneuver, how he can optimize his earnings, all of that, right? And then towards the end of it, how to get financing, right? That was a big piece because I want to deploy from 1,000 to 6,000 and then 100,000 over the next 2 years. How would I get there? So creative means as a startup, right? We said that bank finance is not available. I'm a 2-year-old startup. They would look at my 5-year balance sheet. I don't have it. So we said to the world, hey guys, do you want to invest in a bike? You'll get 20% returns. Just invest in a bike. I have equity money. I'll fund, your 20% IRR. So people came forward. From 200 to 1,000 we got to, and then 1,000 to 6,000, and then 60,000. It'll all happen because people want to make return on capital. If they can invest in a green asset, it just gives them that value. Oh, it's a green option. It's running on ground. It's a green bike. It's doing magic on the ground, right? So that's the journey that we've got to. Right? And I think I would still say that this is just the beginning. 6,000 is nothing. I'm delivering 1 million shipments in a month, which is, hitting 10 lakh doors. But I think overall, e-commerce does about 3 crore shipments every day. Absolutely. So that's the opportunity of EV adoption in last mile. Right?
Fantastic. One more thing which is very important is you mentioned that, you worked on the entire ecosystem because there are too many challenges or roadblocks that I could see when you were speaking, whether it is charging, because of range anxiety initially, over a period of time, products have also improved, which are giving better mileage. And especially if you need to do more than 1 trip a day, it's a challenge. Again, financing, as you rightly mentioned, these guys would, most of them would not even have a CIBIL score for that matter, So getting funding is very, very challenging. So that's another area, which you very innovatively tried to address by, promising a 20% IRR and, kind of getting money from someone else, but for funding the bike and then providing them that money. And the last one also, which you mentioned, with respect to training drivers, because that's extremely critical, because typically the torque, the pickup of a electric vehicle is very different as compared to what a normal ICE vehicle is. So that is also something which definitely helped. Kudos, good job done, I'd say, over the last couple of years. Moving to you, coming to MoEVing. If you could let us know, your journey, you've been one of the key guys in the last mile mobility using a 3-wheelers. unlike Akash, who's largely been focused on the two-wheeler space, and probably you're one of the key customers for OSM. So, if you could throw some light on, how you've been in this, what are the issues or challenges you faced? Of course, I'm sure you would have faced very similar challenges to what Akash has faced, with respect to financing, etc. So, how have you overcome that? How do you overcome range anxiety? Because, for you guys, it's far more important, because more the number of deliveries, the faster you sweat your asset, and, the faster you recover your money.
No, thanks. We started moving last year, and we are an 18 months old company now. In the last 18 months, we have about 1,200 electric vehicles on the road in the last mile delivery space across 15 cities in India. And we serve about 25 plus customers and doing about 500,000 deliveries a month. The key problem that I see in the EV adoption is that Indian logistics industry is a fragmented industry. The ownership is always lie with the individual drivers or the small fleet operators. Right. Till the time the individual driver doesn't feel the confidence and the convenience to become a EV owner, the EV adoption will not happen to that extent. So the problem that we are trying to solve is from a driver perspective, how do we make the driver a EV owner and ensure that he has access to the demand starting from 5 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the night. He has access to the charging infra either set up by us or the partner network. He has access to the affordable financing, and he has access to the maintenance and services of the vehicle. So we have also taken a very ecosystem approach to make sure that the driver lifecycle management happens through the moving platform. That's number one. Number two, the challenges come from the good EV product. I think what Uday was referring to is that the number of EV products even today is far less compared to what the number of vehicle in the ICE space. Until we have OEMs, whether it's existing and new OEMs, who are championing the cause of electric vehicle and giving us a product which has the right fit for the use case with a multiplicity of the charging solutions, where there is an option of fast charging, there's an option of battery swapping, and there's an option of using the slow charging as well. So the multiplicity of the product availability and the multiplicity of the charging infra availability, those has to go together to make that the entire universe of the last mile delivery can be electrified. And e-commerce, so we are seeing some OEMs taking shape. Now we are seeing few more OEMs giving us new product. We have seen in two-wheeler, we are seeing in three-wheeler. We are also testing four-wheeler with the leading OEM. So we are seeing good improvement in the product. Charging hub, we are seeing good battery swapping options, fast charging options coming up. So we are a technology agnostic platform. So we are onboarding all those solutions ourselves. On the customer side, I think e-commerce is only 6% of the overall delivery happening in India. 94% is still untapped. While we are focusing on e-commerce, we are seeing a huge traction in the paints company. Paints company want to do the delivery using electric vehicles. This is just one segment we are exploring. But what I'm seeing is that the whole customer will go from 6% of the e-commerce to 100%. I'm a believer in what Uday said, that in the next 5 years, all the delivery that's happening in India, it has to be electric. There's no other way.
Thanks for your thoughts. Ashim, coming to you, if you look at it from an independent perspective, there are too many challenges, that have been, that either the user or the OEM has been facing. They have tried to address this by creating their own ecosystem. But do you feel it's going to be easy to achieve scale if, one has to do this on his own, one by one? Do you see a larger role to be played here? What are your views, thoughts there? How do you think we could address or plug in a few of these challenges, specifically charging infrastructure, financing, maybe even product is something that, we could leave it to the OEM, he's good at doing it, but at least the ecosystem around, what are your views on it?
Right. So thanks for that question, Hemal. And I think we heard quite a few great stuff about how many of these players have already solved it. So I know when you're referring to can somebody else do something, probably you're also hinting at can the government do something about it, perhaps, right? So I think they've brought out all those incentives and things like that, which are very much there, right? Added to that, the fact that oil has been quite expensive, so that's also been a catalyst towards the shift. So I think in terms of aligning all of those factors, they're very well aligned for the EV space. Now coming to what will build sort of scale in this, right? So I would just take off from what Vikash was also saying. For example, on the last mile, you said only 6% right now is there, which is electrified, for instance. Now, that's where we know that in the transportation segment, it's a lot not about, is it a very swanky looking vehicle or things like that. It's more about, the influencers or the ones who are regarded as, people knowledgeable about this, maybe the mechanics, etc. What is their perception? What is their experience about these set of vehicles? And that's where if these vehicles are being utilized to a large extent by, say, the e-commerce fleet, where inherently there was this advantage of high volume, low weight, so electric was a great choice to do. And now, as you were referring to paints and other categories, so even the tonnage going up, the weight's going up and still performing well, I think that will start the chain reaction for the shift to happen to the remaining 94% also happening there. What's very important at this stage is, because now all of this is moving in the right direction, has been these unfortunate incidents around the fires, etc., that have happened. Those could dampen the consumer confidence in the market, which is still very small. That's one place where I think the government could also play a role by, in terms of the standards, etc., that come in, so that, whatever's put on the road is really roadworthy, is really reliable, is able to take the kind of abuse that some of these vehicles are going to be subject to, so that the confidence levels do not dip and all the great work that the various companies are doing can then be added on, and we don't have something like this coming as a dampener towards this. And I think one major area where we see a lot of this could be solved is the battery side, and it's great to see that companies in India already talking about cell level manufacturing and solving this one issue that is there. Finally, just a bit on the charging side of it, I think, already Uday also spoke about how, like horses for courses, so different kind of charging solutions depending on what you are doing. And we are seeing that, all of these, whether it's swapping, slow charge, fast charge, where you also then will start tweaking with the chemistry to see, can I have a smaller battery which can be rapidly charged in 8 to 10 minutes, like an LTO or something. Those use cases are coming depending on, what is the requirement of the consumers. So I don't see that remaining a very big challenge as we move forward, especially in the B2B segment.
Fantastic. Very important few points that you raised. One, of course, we'll have to be technology agnostic, at least initially, till the time we overcome these teething issues and we reach scale to a certain extent. We should be open to adopting newer technologies, newer combinations of cell chemistry to ensure that, we make more safer vehicles and more vehicles, which are suited to the Indian environment. Another important point you raised was about fires. Yes, of course, they need to be addressed, and this is the larger need. If this dampens the confidence of the customer, you will actually see the industry being pushed by a couple of years. And very much like you said, it's extremely important for, one of the most important stakeholders in this, that's the government, to step in and ensure that, it's clearly put out what are the reasons and the steps that they are taking to ensure that this does not occur again, So very, very valid points kind of raised by you. Coming back to you, Uday, just wanted to understand, even Vikash touched on it and so did Ashim, that, apart from e-commerce, there are various other applications, which could slowly, gradually start moving to, electrification. Now, one question I had, not to, in a way, lead the conversation to a different level, but e-com today, in a way, is largely driven by global giants, the Amazons, Flipkarts of the world. They have global commitments to ESG. And that is one of the other reasons that they are wanting to drive electrification. But when we look at the remaining 94% today, there is not a push that they would see, coming in, which will lead them to move towards electrification. Yes, one thing which is clearly evident and has been proven is that from a total cost of ownership perspective, which is the moot point or the key, as I say, where 2 and 3 wheelers both today, even with running of about 20,000 kilometers a year for 2 wheelers and about 6,000 kilometers for 20,000 for 3 wheelers and 6,000 for 2 wheelers is, either viable or it beats what, is given in ICE. Of course, this is at a time when fuel prices are more than 100. So how do you see this application space panning out? Do you see us slowly, gradually moving away from e-com? What are the other application segments you feel, would fit into this space, which will drive electrification?
First of all, I'd like to maybe comment on, the battery fires. And see, I think the problem is cells. I mean, if you in England we say you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. If you want to pay, very, very little for a battery, well, you're going to get the D-grade cells from China. And I think the problem is, OEMs and battery manufacturers have to be responsible. Just, I think, and again, there are, Log9's been one of them. There are others. But I would say if you look at the batteries, there was a fire at one of the big OEMs, and there was a comment that, we're going to get the batteries back and we're going to check them out. What are you going to check? You're going to check the cells? I mean, that's just bogus, right? So I'm sorry. I'm being very, very direct that I think the cells and the battery manufacturers, as well as the OEMs, have a responsibility. I'm sorry, I'm going away from your question, but this is very serious. Let me be clear. One life lost is too many. It could be your grandma, it could be my daughter, it could be your wife. And I think the responsibility to battery manufacturers, to OEMs, of producing batteries. And I think one thing need to be important. I think the government should be working on it. They're working on it. In Europe and America, you're talking about London, I spent many, many years there. I mean, you drive a vehicle while you're drunk, you're going to have a real penalty. You sell vehicles or you sell a battery that is going to lead to a life loss, you should be penalized. And I think that's only when people understand the consequences. So this is something that is very close to my heart. I think it's very important. Battery manufacturers and OEM have to be responsible. You guys are driving vehicles. If any one of your drivers loses life, that's extremely, extremely bad, right? I mean, we cannot afford that. So this is something we should really, and we can discuss this another stage. Coming back to, your question, it's extremely important. We're only focusing on Amazon or Flipkart or Big Basket. What we are seeing, and I'm sure you two are also seeing, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4 cities. I was just in Bhubaneswar on Sunday, and I'll tell you, we opened up a 115 dealership. There is demand in all across this country, in West Bengal, in Uttar Pradesh, in Guwahati, across this country. I think we have milk guys who are coming and saying, look, in Bihar, who are saying, look, we are delivering milk on IC engines. We are actually paying more for transportation than the milk itself. Electric is a solution. So I think there is a huge amount of demand out there. Now, different horses for different courses. You got to make products according to them. You can't just say, well, I'm going to sell you a vehicle with a blue color, and this is what it's going to be. You got to, again, coming back to London, I love Savile Row. They make suits according to your needs. We at OSM will do that. We will work with partners. You want fixed, you want swap, you want fast charging, you want whatever you want, and whatever technology can provide, we will do this. I believe that this is just the tip of the it's just of the iceberg. There is so much demand. I think the problem is the infrastructure, the charging, that needs to be built. So we just can't look at it. This is a whole ecosystem. And I say, there is no competition. Zypp and MoEVing are not competitors. They are complementary. They are working towards building an ecosystem where all of us are going to live in a much, much better place that is going to give efficiency, that's going to give better standard of living. And for me and my OSM family, if these boys and girls can make that, whether I'm number 1 or 2 doesn't matter, but the ecosystem gets built, I'll be in the back. All these young guys can all become unicorns. I will stand and, I give them a big applause on the backyards if they can achieve the goal. At OSM, we'll continue to build vehicles that can help them achieve that. Thank you.
So one more thing, there you kind of raised many points, when you were speaking. Again, I'll not go back to the fire issue, but the other important point that you made, and which also is suggested by data, is that if you look at, say, fiscal 21, about a couple of years ago, the top 10 cities contributed to almost 60-70% of the overall sales. But now you look at it today, they contribute to about 25%, 28%, which also suggests that, electrification is moving into pockets or in cities, which is not limited only to top 10 cities, but, beyond, which is, a very, very important thing, as because as more and more people experience it, you will see higher adoption of electric vehicles coming in. You also touched upon the point that, probably it's going to be tier 2, tier 3 cities, which will now start driving electrification beyond the Amazons and Flipkarts of the world, which have been largely driving it till date. Of course, even there, the opportunity is huge, as, Akash mentioned, he's doing about 1 million shipments a day. There are 3 crore shipments that go on a daily basis. So even there, there's a huge opportunity which is left untapped, and beyond that too. So Akash, coming to you from here on, if you were to give a view as to, in your entire fleet that you are currently deploying, what is the proportion that comes from, fairly organized e-com guys, and what is it that, is coming from maybe not so organized or maybe tier 2, tier 3 kind of cities, and how has it come up over a period of time, if you could throw some light on that?
So frankly, what we are all competing against, and I agree with Uday, that everyone who's sitting here and trying to do something, we are all having a single focus, that we are beating IC and pollution and petrol, right? Our fight is against that, and the ecosystem matters, and which is why I'm very, very gung-ho about, if you're doing charging, let's work together. If you're doing swapping, let's work together. If you're doing financing, let's work together. If you're an OEM, let's work together. In fact, both of us, we discussed that you do 3-wheelers, yeah, let me do 2-wheelers. We'll see when to do what together, because there's huge scope in both the opportunities, right? So that's the first part. But talking about the opportunity size, right? I think we are talking about tier 2, tier 3. Where are we in tier 1s right now? What is the adoption in tier 1? How many bikes are there in, or how many deliveries? Since this is an e-com centric topic, I'm not touching personal mobility because that's for a different day. But e-commerce, how many deliveries in Delhi NCR, which is touted as the EV capital of the country, which has the best subsidy policy in the country, how many deliveries are still electric? There are very few. Yeah. Just a few of us are doing those deliveries and electrifying them. But in Delhi NCR, when I talk about my top 4 customers, I would be doing a 50% wallet share. But when I talk about the balance 20 customers, they're waiting in line. I'm somewhere at 1%, somewhere at 5%, somewhere at 15% wallet share. So there's huge adoption. And I know that I would not want to hit more than 50% wallet share today because I have so many others waiting. And e-commerce, if you look at Amazon, Flipkart, of the overall Zypp's business, it's 1% contribution from Amazon, Flipkart today. I have not even touched them right now. Amazing. Yeah, we are touching categories. So there are multiple categories. There's Amazon, Flipkart, and e-com and delivery, and a bunch of those. Then there's grocery as a big category, which is booming like anything. People need things in 30 minutes, right? Yeah. EVs are actually cutting that big time, right? I do every second delivery on quick commerce is done by Zypp today, right? Food is a big category, right? Which is there, and it can essentially be done fast, right? 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Then you're talking about the entire bike taxi. India is a big bike taxi market. It's not a cabs market because people, when you go to tier 2, tier 3, that's what people would want. People would want a person to be sitting back and save money and go from one place to another. That's again a big, big opportunity. Then we are talking about all the Kirana stores, right? The Porters of the world or the, bunch of such players. They want deliveries from their warehouses, or their, like there are places in Delhi where so many, Chandni Chowk and all, where there are so many deliveries happening between, their warehouse to the store, right? So those are, big power station which is lying there. Right, so these are the top 4 categories. Then pharma is a big category, which is now, coming along. So everything, logistics has to happen. When COVID happened, what happened? People wanted things to be delivered. You cannot live without things being delivered to your homes. And that opportunity, while it's big in tier 1, which is why we are focusing on tier 1, because again, tier 2 we can do tomorrow. But what's the point? Let's first get the top 8 cities electrified by 40%, 50% shift. And then and obviously tier 2, tier 3 will have some issues of power also, which needs to be solved, right? Electricity. And one of the things that I would want for evolution is that this electricity, which is what is being powered, should be renewable also, right? Maybe there is a huge scope on solar or wind or water, so that then we are talking about the real carbon neutrality. That is what is the core, vision for us. So I would say that there are too many levers which are still untapped within the entire e-commerce. And when I talk e-commerce, I talk about everything logistics, right?
No, but I really liked it, you even touched upon renewables, so understanding very clearly that the supply side also needs to be addressed, because till the time we are going to be coal-based, how much ever we try to move to EVs, this is going to be a challenge. You're moving pollutions away from cities to where, electricity is being generated. Very important point being raised by you. Another thing that you mentioned, even I believe that, probably you may have to create model cities initially, maybe top 7, 8, 10, trade centers, which see very high penetration of, electric vehicles, and then slowly, gradually, proliferate down. And I think, the relevant stakeholders, may it be the central government, state government, various think tanks, can play a huge role in this, in helping, in developing the ecosystem in these major, kind of markets, 8, 10 of them, make them model cities, which will in a way increase confidence for customers to, further propel electrification further. Your views on it, Vikash, how do you see it? You've come in the business in the last 1.5, 2 years. Interestingly, even Akash touched on one point that, when COVID hit us, everybody would want to see, stuff delivered to us at home, or at our premises. So that has also in a way led to faster adoption or proliferation of last mile mobility, if I have to say so. And that has also led to, this segment growing at a very rapid pace. So, how are you kind of seeing this in future?
Sure. What we have seen that as a COVID, during COVID, while the e-commerce grew at an alarming rate, in 2x, 3x proportion, not at like 36%, 40%, but also the growth moved from tier 1 city to tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So when we started, we thought we want to be a pan-India player, and we want to be the one-stop shop for any customers who want to work with us. Hence, we decided that we will use this approach where the demand is there, we will move the vehicles there. And every city has its own flavor. We realized that the model that is working in Ludhiana, so we are operating in Ludhiana also, and the model that we are adopting in Coimbatore is totally different. So if you want to become a pan-India player, you want to be a player who is serving the customers across the country, then you need to understand the flavor of the city. And to understand the city, you have to be there to understand the flavor and work accordingly. So the business model gets innovated in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And I think we will continue to grow cities in a very aggressive manner. Right now, we are in 15 cities. By end of this year, we should be in 30 cities and eventually to 100 cities. So we have taken a very different approach in terms of city expansion. But of course, we also know we cannot go to Ludhiana and if Uday doesn't want to go to Ludhiana. We cannot go to Bhubaneswar if we don't have OEM support there. So when we take a city expansion approach, we do in partnership with players like OSM or other players. We want to ensure that charging point operators are there. So we do in a much more collaborative way so that we provide the entire ecosystem to that city rather than we only going there and trying to do everything on our own.
Sure.
Any city, mate, you want to go, any city, just let me know. I'll come with you, yeah? So before, please, and I'll get some other guys with you. Just let me know the city, yeah? And if I'm not there soon, then you can tell the public at large that I was just not being real. So just give me a city and I'll be there. No problem.
So heartening to hear that. Ashim, before concluding, if you could share your thoughts or views on, two things. One, financing still continues to be a very, very big bottleneck, especially with respect to proliferation of both two-wheelers, three-wheelers across application segments, because the customer profile itself is quite weak and financiers are not having that confidence. What do you feel could be certain innovative ways in which, we could propel financing? Because in case of three-wheelers especially, more than 98% of three-wheelers are funded. But even in case of two-wheelers, it's about 50% plus, which are funded. So financing becomes a very, very important, kind of part in the entire piece. Because, today if you have to give 30% down payment on a vehicle which is already more expensive than ICE and pay higher interest rates and get lower tenors, it's actually disincentivizing someone from purchasing an electric vehicle rather than promoting that particular category. So, how do you think, we could solve this issue, or, look at certain ways in which we could arrive at solutions to propel this?
Sure. Yeah, I think financing, yes, it has been a weak point in the EV space for quite some time. I mean, one solution is about leasing, but where we've seen very limited penetration in general in the automotive market in India, and also in the segment of interest as well. Primarily because most of those people do not realize the kind of tax benefits that leasing could bring in, because they, it's not so much on the books, it's a lot off the books kind of business. So there again, one is what, we've just heard about, all the tie-ups that are happening with the financiers and things like that, because even the financiers needed the kind of confidence to be able to finance these vehicles, because they were not very sure about the residual value, for example. So those things I think the OEMs and the players are taking care of by getting the finances in the loop, tying up with them so that there's somebody available for doing that financing for you, right? Of course, another thing could be, a preferential rate, if that's possible. Again, there will be complications, because the financier will say, yeah, by the time you give this battery, this vehicle is 5 years old, the battery is going to be gone, and all of those things will come in. One thing that has worked here is also, for example, swapping, which has then decoupled, say, the battery price with the vehicle price, because you can also sell the vehicle without the battery, for example. Right. So that brings down the acquisition cost. So, for somebody who's not getting as much financing also, the barrier of the acquisition cost is lowered to that extent. I think that's going to be another lever, which is not so much from the from a financing standpoint, but also from the product standpoint, that if we decouple the two and we sell, then the affordability goes up, and that's where people are also going to go keep on grabbing these. Lastly on that, as we heard also, there is a lot of fragmentation in the fleet. So once a bit of consolidation starts happening, the credit profile goes up, and then you can walk across to a financer and say, finance so many vehicles for me. And we are seeing that's happening with e-commerce. It's expected to happen in general in the trucking segment, even long haul. Sure. And once that starts taking shape, some of these problems will also get addressed. Just one more point to add, I think, which we didn't touch upon so much on the panel, is also about the pricing of these vehicles, where there is a very, very strong correlation with how the battery raw materials are moving. And that's where I think we as a country and as a set of players and as an ecosystem need to secure, if we can't secure raw materials, at least secure the intermediate materials for battery manufacturing. Because if we see it today, the large battery manufacturers, their capacities have been booked out by players who are there, who have much larger volumes. So if an Indian player is going to go and say, they're going to say, this is available off the shelf at this price, take it or leave it. So we are going to be more vulnerable towards these price fluctuations, etc. And also the kind of batteries that we get may not be bespoke, suited to the needs that we have here. So securing at least the intermediate materials which will come if we have knowledge of the chemistries and the recipes for making those chemistries, will be very important. Of course, it would have been great if we could secure raw materials also, but that's more driven geopolitically, so maybe not so much possible.
Very, very important point that you touch upon. I would say that probably, and again, it's a case where, the government has made an attempt. They have something called as Kabul, Khanij Bidesh Nigam. It's been announced, but not much action happening there. But as you rightly said, in the right spirit, if that is taken forward the way it has to, then, we will definitely see that, there is much more proactive participation in this space. And, we would actually see battery manufacturing coming up in India in a very big way.
I mean, the PLI scheme for battery is a step in the right direction, but
Absolutely.
we need to see more and more sort of, the chemistry know-how coming in, because then you can also tweak depending on how the market prices are moving. But for you to be able to do that, you need to have that knowledge, and you need to have a battery cell manufacturing happening in the country.
Absolutely. Point taken. Point taken. Yeah, Uday, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just one thing. I think, the financing is extremely important, and I think that, I think we've got the PLI schemes, and we've got FAME 1, FAME 2, FAME 3. Again, being an economist by background, we've looked at the supply, but nobody is talking about the demand. And in economics, demand without purchasing power doesn't. So we need to make sure we all work towards policies, towards financing. I think something that the moving guys have done very well, with the J&K Bank. I think we need to have more financing. How many big banks, state banks, have been involved in financing? None. So I'm saying, we're talking about, it's like going to a wedding and we're all ready, but the bride is not there. So I think we're in that kind of a moment. So I think, financing is something I'm personally also working on. I know moving is working. I'm sure you are looking at it. I think that is something that needs to be done. And I'll tell you, you talked about, the concern of, longevity of the product. I'll be proud to say, and again, we in Log9 are providing vehicles with 6-year warranty and a 6-year, with the cycles of, 10 to 15,000 cycles and a buyback of the battery. So I think that should be able to give customers the confidence. And I think that us and many other OEMs, I keep saying, this is not about OSM, this is about building the ecosystem. And guys like Zypp and MoEVing and many, many others, driving vehicles, putting the logistics on the world. That is what we need. And I think without us, they're no good. Without them, we are no good. Without the battery place. So we all got to, it's like, I'm into fitness and, I'm still a lot older than all you guys. But from what I see in a marathon, the first 20 kilometers, all the Kenyans run together. Usually they win all the races. In the last 5 miles, everyone for themselves. So I think let's run together. I keep saying, let's all of us run together for the first 20. The last 5, mate, we all can win. Well, that's no problem. And I think that's what's important.
Extremely critical, especially the point that you touched on. If you guys are, or the OEMs are in a position to give 6-year warranty or, a buyback option, I'm sure there is no reason why financiers would not be willing to fund. Today, what is happening, as per my understanding, is when you actually go and talk to financiers, under PMP and FAME, you need to give a 3-year battery warranty. So that is what is being provided. Most of the funding happens for 4 years. In case of 2-wheelers and 3-wheelers, it's a little lower. But generally, it happens with a 4-year block. And if you're going to offer a vehicle with a 3-year warranty, then, the financiers will keep thinking. But yes, if that's happening, that's a step in the right direction. I'm very sure, financiers may be much more comfortable in funding vehicles if they are assured that they are going to get some resale out of, kind of the vehicle coming back after a period of time when the funding is over. I think thank you very much. We would conclude the panel discussion. But if there are any questions, we'll be happy to take maybe 1 or 2 of them. Oh my Lord, we already have to. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Quite an insightful session. I think touched upon right from sustainability to energy mix, solution mix, and could see a lot of collaborative discussion from OEM to the fleet management to the thing. My question is to Uday, specifically in terms of OEMs. How do you see in terms of the application towards OEM entering into multiple segments. Say, for example, I could say OSM is into two-wheeler, three-wheeler, is into fleet. So how do you see this completely born electric with multiple segments? How do you see this in the market?
Look, I think, again, it's OSM is about bringing the environment and bringing India, a leadership role in electrification. And I think, what we will do, at least that's what I am continually working every day on, is to make sure that we are able to provide products to the like of Zypp, to the likes of MoEVing, and multiple other players who will change logistics in this country. And I keep saying this, guys, we are all very focused on, mera beta engineer banega, I'm going to buy a big house. But if all of our kids are suffering, believe you me, that money and that house is going to do nothing. So OSM is as an OEM. If I need to bring, I'm working. I just started working in Korea in my R&D center on tractors. I know there's a lot of other tractors. Agriculture sector needs disruption. I don't know if you guys know. I go down to the villages in Tamil Nadu, in Karnataka, in Andhra, in Uttar Pradesh. We have these big tractors. I don't know if all of you know, our farms are very small. Yeah. I don't know. We don't need those big tractors. So if I can provide to Zypp or MoEVing tractors for hire, so these boys and girls can go down to the farms and say, okay, we'll do this or we'll provide you services. That is disruption. We have majority of our population living in those places. So yes, tier 1, tier 2 cities are good, but if we want to make a change, you want to make a change, join us in this journey. Be part of this. Whatever experience you have, all these young guys coming, 18 months, am I wrong? And look at where this company is. Log9, 3 years or 4 years. Look at where they are. Zypp. All of these guys are building such great companies. And for me, I'll build products for them. I'll give them what they need. I'll put my money to where my mouth is, and we'll make it. I think this is an opportunity that India has to build and make ourselves a leader in electrification and green energy.
Just a follow-up question, Uday, to Akash. Specifically, good to see your energy traveling a lot across. I could see Uday doing that. But to Akash, you touched upon this, the centralized energy, decentralized energy, talking about charging infrastructure in tier 1, tier 2, or even primarily the EV role by itself is shifting the pollution from where it is produced to the urban areas. So we are just trying to offset the pollution. But basically just want to understand any plans for tier 2, tier 3 cities, charging infrastructure, decentralized energy management in terms of, no?
Absolutely. See, our plan for the next 2 years is to get into 50 cities, right? I know that we wanted to prove our market in a density, in a one market, right? Which is what we've done. So all the 5 cities of Delhi NCR, when you see at any point in time you go on streets, you would, it would not be a day that you would not see in a green scooter. That's what we wanted to, ensure that yes, we have a large wallet share and we can make one city work. And while we did that, it is also a good point that this business is profitable. That's another thing that we wanted to ensure that yes, there's money to be made. It's not a startup. It can make money, and that's what we've been able to prove. And now that that model is set, it's very easily replicable. The processes are set. The driver adoption is there. The technology is there. The partnerships are there. It's all about now replicating. So case in point, last year, at the same time, we were just onboarding about 300 bikes a month. Now we are ready to, we are onboarding 1,500, but we are ready to onboard about 2,500 bikes a month. So you can look at the leap, of 10x. And I think this 10x can go to another 10x in the next 1 year, the way the demand of EVs are there. So yeah, so we want to first get the larger pockets done. And if we've done it in a large market, I think going into tier 2, tier 3 would be very easy. Because this logistics ideally is a hub and spoke model, right? So once you capture all the key hubs of your partners, you can serve them very well. You're all clean. The drivers are very happy because they get concentrated charging, swapping infrastructure, and their incomes rise like anything. Yeah. So definitely that's on the roadmap.
good to see the collaboration with
Thanks.
the panelists. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, so we'll probably have one last question because, yeah, please go on.
So my question, am I audible?
Yeah.
So my question is to Akash and Vikash, so you guys are the logistics players, and how does your negotiation power stack versus the e-commerce delivery companies that you are enabling? Like in COVID times, you guys were the ones who were risking the drivers' lives and delivering the goods for the e-commerce companies. When the petrol prices went through the roofs, they conveniently shifted to electric mobility thanks to you guys. When they wanted to expand to tier 2, tier 3 cities, they pushed you guys to open up unprofitable centers. So is that balance of power shifting somewhat now? Are you guys able to get more per parcel or more per day, per vehicle from these e-commerce companies, or still, they won't pay a penny more? It's all, despite the ESG investment angle that they have, they won't pay a penny more than what they would otherwise for a particular delivery.
You want to take first? Yeah. See, I'll tell you what is the problem that we are solving for logistics, right? So today, the entire logistics, how it operates is, especially on the two-wheeler side, they operate with an aggregated model. A guy owns the bike, and he is onboarded to deliver goods, right? Now, I'll tell you, just case in point, one of the food aggregators, right, as Zomato or Swiggy, what is in their control today? They have the control of the restaurant because they're giving him orders, right? And hence they are able to charge commission from the restaurant. They have the control of the customer because now the customer is hooked on to order more and more food, and now they've started charging delivery fee. But what do they not have control on is the logistics. They do not have any control of the driver because today he'll come, tomorrow he will not. Today he'll deliver for you, tomorrow he'll deliver for Uber, third day he'll go to Amazon, fourth day he'll go to Zepto, right? So the guy who owns his own bike has the control on his bike. For logistics, this has to change. And that is how trucking logistics work, right? So what we are able to offer, especially, to all these customers is that you get a sure 100% supply of your delivery executives on electric bikes every day at the time that you want for the number of shipments that you want, right? So that is the comfort that we are able to offer, which is zero churn and a fixed price. So you don't have to throw dollars to get that guy again for you. Because sometimes when there's rain, they'll throw 100 rupees for the guy to pick up the shipment, right? Or if there's high surge, then again, they'll throw 150 bucks because the supply is limited. With Zypp, because I have the control on the fleet, I'm able to offer them whatever time slots that you want. I'll give you 3 hours for milk, I'll give you 8 hours for e-commerce, I'll give you 6 hours for food, and I'll ensure that that happens every day, every shipment on time. That's the differentiator that we are able to create. And with that, we are also able to create more earning for this guy without any capital investment of the delivery boy. Because see, he doesn't have money to pay EMI. He doesn't have money to get a down payment. I'm financing everything for him. And I tell him that if you stay on the platform, the bike is yours, right? So that's the entire approach that we feel logistics should be done. And this disruption can be taken to, millions of bikes very easily, right? That's my thought.
No, I think the way I understood your problem is that whether the e-commerce player has the upper hand in terms of signing a contract and commercial with us. I think historically, the way they have seen is that I tell you do. That mindset we are trying to change. That we both sit across a table and we decide together that what is the right contracting terms and condition, what is the right commercial, and it has to be done in a very transparent and fair manner. If this is the cost structure, we also have to make margin, and then we have to ensure that is a sustainable business. If you save money and we don't make money, anyway we are going to shut our shop. So how does it benefit you? So what we have seen now, that over the last 18 months of our journey, customer has understood this, and they are not just saying that this is the price and you take it. We discuss a lot in terms of coming at a commercial, and we have seen over the past 18 months that when we have requested for increase in commercials, customers have agreed to it because we have been very fair and transparent in terms of our cost structure and to give them the value for what they are trying to get from us. So I don't see them that the mindset that I tell you do will going to work. It's only going to work when you are talking like a partners and having a fair game where you save money but we also make money, and that's the only way we can run a sustainable business together.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. We'll conclude the session here. Thank you very much. Thank you.